Okay. So let's wait just 30 seconds. People are connecting.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, depending where you are living. Thank you for joining us today. For those who were unfortunately not with us yesterday, I'm gonna do again an introduction. So my name is Amandine, and I am working with the UNCTAD Statistics Service in Geneva, and I'm coordinating activities related to the measurement of South-South cooperation. So welcome to this webinar, and thank you very much for joining us. So yesterday we had a discussion, a very interesting discussion on perspectives on how to measure South-South cooperation, but how to support national authorities. So with a lot of discussions around policy, but we also started to discuss the more technical part and data part of the work, which leads us to today's session, where we will discuss concrete measurement from countries, so case studies from the first countries who actually reported some data using the UN framework to measure South-South cooperation. So the countries are Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. So this is going to be the discussion today on the logistic part. So this is a webinar, and you can see that you can write questions in the chat. I can also already see people saying hello. So hello to everyone. You also have a Q&A chat box. If you, on my screen, if you click on the 3 dots where it's written more, you have Q&A, so you can also ask questions in the Q&A. If we have enough time after the 3 presentations, you can also raise your hand and we can take a few questions from people who want to speak instead of writing. So you can see that there is interpretation for Spanish. Unfortunately, due to the financial situation, current financial situation at the UN, we were not able to provide interpretation in all UN languages. And we want to thank the Brazilian Cooperation Agency for providing interpretation in Spanish. So for people who wish to listen to Spanish, you click on the interpretation icon at the bottom of your page and you select either Spanish or English or the original audio, so without any interpretation. So we will start with welcoming remarks, and I will give the floor shortly to Ms. Anu Peltola, the Director of UNCTAD Statistics, and then to Mr. Rolando Ocampo, the Director of ECLAC Statistics Division, will share some remarks too. And then I will hand over to Boyan, my colleague Boyan Nastov, for an introduction on the work we're doing, and then we will give the floor to countries' representatives. One reminder to all speakers and panelists is please don't speak too fast. I hope I'm not not speaking too fast myself for the interpreters. Thank you very much, and don't hesitate to write any questions in the chat or in the Q&A box as explained earlier. So I'm inviting now Anu Peltola, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Amandine. Dear colleagues and friends, it's me again to welcome you. Now, this is the second day of our webinar on South-South data for sustainable development. And today, we will shift our focus from the high-level vision to the technical foundations that will make that vision a reality. So this session will bring together national and international experts who are at the forefront of collecting, consolidating, validating, and reporting data on South-South cooperation. Your work is essential, not only to ensure the visibility of the South's contributions to global development, but also to build robust, interoperable data systems that serve national priorities and inform regional and global goals. I am especially pleased to be joined today by Mr. Rolando Ocampo, Director of Statistics at ECLAC, whose leadership with countries of Latin America has been instrumental in advancing this agenda in the region and beyond. Today, we will hear from pioneering countries, Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia, who have taken concrete steps to operationalize the UN framework for measuring South-South cooperation. Their experiences offer valuable lessons on how to build national setups, mobilize institutions, and apply the agreed concepts and methodologies in practice. We are also proud to be launching shortly the South-South Data Insights developed by UNCTAD with the support and expertise of these countries to showcase the first data in the UN framework. We hope this will inspire all of you in the data collection and reporting efforts. The platform will be a hub for data and insights on South-South cooperation in all its modalities, highlighting the many types of financial and non-financial cooperation. And it will be expanded with new data as countries start collecting and reporting their data, even when partial data is available, so that we can share progress. We hope our South-South Data Insights will inspire all interested countries in their efforts also to identify good practices in South-South cooperation and to think of new ways to use data to inform policy and cooperation strategies. Dear colleagues, thank you for joining today and for your continued commitment and readiness to share your expertise. Let's make today a productive and inspiring step forward in building stronger and more data-informed foundations for South-South cooperation efforts. Thank you so much. I look forward to the discussions. Back to you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Anu. Thank you very much. Rolando, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amandine, and good day to all of you. Good morning for the colleagues here in Latin America. Good afternoon, and for other colleagues in Europe and other places. It is a great honor for me to join you today as a Statistics Director of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean from ECLAC, and to share a few reflections on the regional progress in measuring South-South cooperation here in Latin America. So we are now, as you know, in the second phase of the global project led by UNCTAD, named Quantifying South-South Cooperation to Mobilize Resources for the SDGs, for the Sustainable Development Goals. This phase is essential for laying the groundwork together with pilot countries in the region and preparing the next expansion stage. Here in ECLAC, we have been working closely with UNCTAD, supported by regional consultants and experts, to develop key materials aimed to strengthening the institutional and statistical capacity of countries. This has been both a technical and political process, required time, maturity, dialogue, and coordination. So we are proud to see in this phase concrete results for this joint effort. First, a methodological manual is now available in Spanish, and a welcome package made in Spanish has been translated and used in other regions, such as Africa, in particular in Nigeria and Namibia. Moreover, UNTAC has included this material in an online training course currently under development. So, in Latin America, this achievement has been possible thanks to the trust and commitment of countries. And let me give you two examples. The first one is the support that the Cooperation Agency of Brazil has to support us to provide interpretation for this event. And another example is the agreement that MOU that we just signed with the Cooperation Agency of Colombia, the APC Colombia, to support this project, and with a funding of $100,000. These two are very clear examples of the concrete cooperation that we have here in Latin America and the support for this project. And so we have, in addition, we have also secured an interdivisional collaboration to give visibility and technical support to this initiative. And for example, at the regional conference of South-South cooperation, the creation of an open-end working group has requested to follow up on progress and support the institutionalization of measurement framework. So this project has been presented in various national and regional spaces, in particular in Colombia, Peru, and Chile. And countries such as Argentina, Dominican Republic, Uruguay, Chile, and Guatemala have expressed interest in joining us. This reflects not only the interest, but also the growing ownership of the measurement framework across the region. I would also highlight that ECLAC plays a great importance of the South-South cooperation. In fact, here in ECLAC, a subsidiary body has been created to promote and strengthen this form of cooperation in the region, reaffirming our long-term commitment. In fact, next week we are going to have a meeting for a South-South cooperation where the Statistics Division is going to moderate a complete panel. To conclude, I would like to sincerely thank Anu Pelzola, the Statistics Director of UNTAC, and the whole team of UNTAC for their ongoing commitment and leadership. We acknowledge the challenges of working with limited resources, but the vision of UNTAC has been essential to advance in this agenda. ECLAC and all the team of the Statistics Division remain committed to supporting this process and to strengthen statistical cooperation capacity in our region in Latin America and the Caribbean. With this, I thank you, and I wish you a very good seminar, second part of the seminar. And thank you, and over to you, Amandine.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Rolando, for those welcoming remarks. Much appreciated. I will now give the floor to Boyan to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amandine, and thank you very much, Anu and Rolando, for the inspiring words on where we are and essentially where we would like to go, and essentially also the point of how to get there. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, and good luck to the interpreters with me. I tend to speak fast, but I will do my best to not speak too fast. I would like to take not too much time, but essentially to have a few questions answered about measuring South-South cooperation. In a way, as an introduction to a more concrete discussion or more concrete presentations by the three pioneering countries, notably Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, who have had their hands dirty with the South-South cooperation data for a little while now. So when we say measuring South-South cooperation, obviously there are many questions flying around. really the basic ones: why, what, and how, who, where, and when. Not to go into details of all of those, because we have been addressing some of those questions yesterday, but very briefly on the why to measure the South-South cooperation, I think the 2030 agenda is only one piece of the puzzle of why it is important to measure South-South cooperation. We all firmly believe that even beyond 2030 agenda, South-South cooperation is really, as we have seen yesterday, a strong and important element of measuring and monitoring and also developing international development with the South-South cooperation as its specific modality. But more importantly, South-South cooperation is, at this moment, the only development cooperation that is not being systematically measured. That's why it is important to really develop evidence-based policymaking and provide proper and robust evidence for monitoring and evaluation. On the what part, so what are we essentially talking about when we say South-South cooperation? From a high-level perspective, we can really understand that there are these four different elements that we have also discussed already previously, which is one, it's a comprehensive framework of collaboration. So it's not only financial one, it really goes and stretches beyond that to the political, economic, social, cultural, and so on. It is a complement to the North-South cooperation, as has been vividly explained yesterday, and it is building on the guiding principles, notably the horizontality and solidarity. So these are really important principles of the South-South cooperation. And then this brings us to various forms of the South-South cooperation. And those various forms are, of course, let's say, posing methodological challenges. And that's why it is really important to understand at the beginning, at the onset, what South-South cooperation actually means. In defining the South-South cooperation, obviously there are various approaches to it. One of those would be to really have the widest possible theoretical approach, to say everything that is taking place between the countries of the South can be considered as a South-South cooperation. Again, another point that has been mentioned yesterday is that, of course, we can say and distinguish various elements and say all of this, including, for example, trade or private flows, tourism, and everything else, is part of a South-South cooperation. However, in measuring the South-South cooperation, a conceptual framework for the South-South cooperation is clearly defining what South-South cooperation for this statistical measurement means. Specifically, we are focusing, as per the framework, on the concessional loans and grants, technical cooperation, and other only official support between the countries of the South. This element, we believe, is very crucial, because after we have a definition and understanding of what South-South cooperation is, then we can really make the step onwards to understand, okay, how can we then measure it? The framework to measure South-South cooperation is identifying or defining three main groups of the South-South cooperation. Group A is capturing financial support. So this is financial support that is reported in monetary terms, which means, for example, in US dollars. And then we have two other groups, groups B and C, which they focus on and cover the non-financial support. The difference between the two of them being that Group B is focusing on non-financial support that is monetized, so expressed in monetary terms, whereas Group C is a non-financial support that is quantified by non-monetary methods, non-monetary units. For example, number of doctors or experts that have been dispatched, or number of individuals that have benefited, or let's say kilograms of equipment that have been donated. So this is a major difference between groups B and C. The reasons behind really introducing the three different groups and making a split is that in many cases, the South-South cooperation, and I'm echoing what has been said yesterday by Marcio from Brazil, is that South-South cooperation is not about competing, and it's not about comparison. It is really about the solidarity and building trust and mutual benefit for all the partners involved. We're happy to report that within the project that Rolando was making a reference to, so this Global Development Account project, a manual for the framework to measure South-South cooperation has been prepared. This manual provides a more concrete, with examples, with definitions, kind of a step-by-step procedural aspects for pilot testing the concepts and the measurement methods as well. And I'm actually even more happy to report that as of these days, the Spanish version of the manual is also available. The informal translation of the manual has been provided with by ECLAC. Thank you very much, Alfonso and the team, to be working so hard to be able to deliver the translation of this important document so that it can be reached to many other countries. As an FYI, we are working together with other regional commissions, more specifically now and actively with ESCWA, so with Wafa and her colleagues, to see and go about the Arabic translation of the manual as well. The idea is, of course, to bring it to the widest range of countries possible. Now, there is an important element when we say, okay, now we are on the step to measure the South-South cooperation. And there are obviously different elements or different levels to it. One is at the subnational level, or let's say even up to a national level. We have different national sources of South-South cooperation activities that in many cases are lying across different agencies as well. So they need to speak to each other. They need to bring all those data into a data collection, let's say database on the South-South cooperation. In doing so, obviously, there is a strong need to follow the framework and the manual to understand what is to be reported and how, in which cell, how to be aggregated, and so on. After the national data collection is processed or is done, then of course we come to the question of the dissemination and using and reporting South-South cooperation to other elements as well. For example, the SDG indicator 17.3.1. This chart, I think, is important not only for the process itself, which we will then see how it is being addressed in specific countries, but also or predominantly for the question of interoperability of the data. We have been seeing this question around more and more, and it is a very important question. Now, the good thing with the UN framework on the South-South cooperation and corresponding manual is that they are based on international standards and international classifications to ensure that the data that are being reported are easily interoperable between the countries, but also between various different concepts or maybe other initiatives to ensure that we have a common understanding of what is being measured and how this is being measured. Maybe just a quick note on the SDG indicator 17.3.1. We'd just like to highlight that the SDG indicator itself, as many other SDG indicators, has several, let's call them sub-indicators or series, as they're called. Only two at this stage of how the SDG indicator is defined, that is the official sustainable development grants and official concessional loans, are essentially addressing the questions of the South-South cooperation. For the SDG indicator, what is important is to note that the International Forum on Thursday, hosted by the OECD, is reporting on the North-South cooperation, whereas UNCTAD will report data on the South-South cooperation. And of course, they have to work together to bring this in. One of the important elements is that the thinking about the integrated information system with the idea to, first of all, ensure a standardized approach to the measurement, dissemination, and obviously analysis, and at the same time to ensure that whatever systems are put in place, either at a national or international level, are being interoperable. Now, this system would be building on the various different, let's say, phases or modules. One is on the collection and a very crucial one on the validation. We know, or everybody who has been dealing with the data collection knows how hard it is to actually not only collect the data, but go through all the process of the validation. And we will be getting some of the insights into those questions today. On the South-South cooperation data, I believe this validation part is even more important or even more crucial, also more troublesome, because there are many nuances that have to be captured to properly measure it and then to bring it on to the analysis and later dissemination. The question on who is actually to work on this is, so South-South cooperation obviously is by the South and for the South. So we're talking about the countries of the South and a nationally compiled and nationally owned process of collecting and disseminating the South-South cooperation data. Within countries, of course, as it has been mentioned earlier, there are various agencies that have different mandates, either to the data, either to the knowledge, either to the infrastructure, technical, legal, and so on. And all of these players have to be brought together for an interagency collaboration. To finish off this introductory part and not to steal too much time from the other presenters, the national data collection activities are ongoing. It has been mentioned, so we have the pioneering countries and we have the pilot countries of the project. And there have been a few more recent requests, which may not be fully reflected on the map from a month or 2 months ago. But essentially, there is a lot of interest and there is a lot of national data collection activities that are really ongoing right now. We are getting ready for the upcoming SDG Indicator 17.3.1 reporting on the South-South cooperation. And we're also happy to report that we have been working with Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico intensely in the last several weeks and months on the so-called South-South data insights. I will share a little bit more information on that part after the presentations. But right now, obviously, the question is, concretely, how does this work on the measurement of the South-South cooperation look like? So on this part, let me stop and let me hand over. So let me hand over to our colleagues from Brazil. Andre, I believe, is with us, and I would kindly ask him if, Andre, you could share with us how the data collection process in Brazil actually looks like. I'm not going to be asking any questions on everything. I think you know your stuff best. So I put all of us in your good hands to show us South-South cooperation measurement in Brazil.
Absolutely, Boyan. Many thanks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. Let me try and share my presentation with you. If you give me just a moment, here you go. And I believe now you can see it in your screen.
We can see it.
So the data on Brazilian International Development Corporation has been collected for 15 years now by the so-called COBRADE project, which is an acronym in Portuguese for Cooperation from Brazil for International Development. So the project dates to 2010, when my institute, the Institute for Applied Economic Research, which is a Brazilian governmental think tank, received a request from the Brazilian Cooperation Agency, ABC, to map out Brazil's international development cooperation. Because before then, we did not know how much was being spent, where, and for what purpose. Now, this was a long process, and I will not go through it, but I just would like to mention that there has been a lot of learning taking place. Actually, we learned by doing over this process, because when we began, we really had no model to look up to. The only model that was actually available was that of the DAC OECD, which, as you know, refers to a very different reality. So over time, there was improvement of concepts and methodologies. And more recently, we have adapted our methodologies and collection procedures to better feed into international metrics of international development cooperation, including TOSD and obviously also the South-South Cooperation Framework. I'm trying to change the slide here. Okay, here we go. So COBRADI, the project itself, began a lot earlier than all these other metrics, including TOSD, South-South Cooperation Framework. And so it is the basis for the data that we use, again, to feed into these metrics. In addition to TOSD and the South-South Cooperation Framework, COBRADI data is also being used to construct an indicator for sustainable
Is it only me, or do we have a technical challenge?
No, we have a problem there. Me
Okay.
too.
Andre, we cannot hear you anymore. Andre, can you hear us? Andre? Okay.
So he dropped.
Maybe Christina could help him while he's disconnected now.
He's disconnected, exactly.
Yeah.
So what we could do, we could share the presentation. But we need him back, or Christina. Yeah, so Christina is here.
Yeah, it's there.
Christina, hello, can you hear us?
Hello?
Andre,
Am I
you're
back?
back.
Yeah, my apologies. I'll
No
keep my
worries.
video off because apparently my connection's unstable.
Do you
I'll
want us,
try-
Andre? Sorry to interrupt. Do you want us to share your presentation?
Yeah, that might help, though I will need to race through much of it, but yeah, that
Yeah.
might be better if you can.
Okay, let me go to it, and I'll.
I can share it. Mm.
Amandine, are you sharing it?
Do you see it?
I don't see
Yes.
anything. Oh, you do?
I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
It's slideshow. Is it in slideshow?
No, not yet.
Where is it?
I think now, yeah, now it is.
Okay. Okay. You were here,
Perfect.
right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, yes, I don't know when you stopped listening to me, but I'll try to pick up from this slide. As I was saying, the COBRADI project is a lot earlier than the other international metrics to which it provides data. And in addition to TOSD and South-South Cooperation Framework, we are also building an indicator, namely SDG 17.9.1, in collaboration with the Brazilian National Statistical Office, IBGE. Next slide, please. So our main deliverables yearly are an event that we promote to discuss international development cooperation with stakeholders, and oftentimes to also train them to provide us data. We have been conducting workshops for that purpose. We also have a book or a final report, if you will, in which we present the data in a more user-friendly manner. We provide graphs, tables, and an overview of the data that was collected that year. And then obviously we also have the databases themselves. All of these are available free of charge in IPEA's website. Next slide, please. And so how is the data collected? Most of it refers to a survey that we conduct with Brazilian governmental institutions over the year. So we ask them to fill out a form, and the form has the data that we need. And we also train them to be able to fill out that form, exactly what counts and what doesn't count as development cooperation. So, and this actually speaks to the issue of validating the data that came up yesterday and also was mentioned today earlier by Boyan. We also do a sort of a robustness check by accessing the databases of the Brazilian Treasury and the Brazilian budget. And so we see how much institutions are spending abroad. And oftentimes when institutions don't respond for whatever reason, this can also serve as a backup, and we can use that as a source of the data instead of the survey. Okay, we have this yearly cycle. I will go through this very quickly for the sake of time. Basically, during the beginning of the year, we review the previous year databases. We publish our final report, and we also have the deadlines for submitting the data to the TASD, the International Forum on TASD, and to UNCTAD for the South-South Cooperation Framework. And then the cycle begins again, so to speak, in April, which is the time when we send the invitations. We have invitations that are signed by the president of my institute to try to incite governmental institutions to, in fact, provide the data and to try to make them recognize the importance of the project. And then in May, we start communicating with these institutions. We complete we also start analyzing the data that's provided. We have a long period of feedback and interaction within with these institutions. And this goes all the way to October, when we have like a first draft of the data in the report. In November, we deliver this. And then by December, we have a preliminary report ready. And in January, the cycle begins again. Next slide, please, Amandine. So what we measure in COBRADI are basically direct expenditures, and these can apply to any modality, but these are expenditures that go to the very purpose of the development cooperation. And we have indirect ones, which apply mostly to technical cooperation and involve, for instance, the wages of experts that are sent abroad and their travel costs, airline tickets, daily stipends, and the like. Next slide. We have, as I mentioned, adapted the database to also respond to the needs of these international metrics. So we also provide a specification of which SDGs every activity relates to or helps to fulfill. We also specify the economic sector using the ISAC codes, and obviously the modalities and cooperation framework. Next, please. We have 10 modalities of Brazilian international development cooperation in COBRADI. These overlap to a certain extent, but nonetheless, they're useful, and they have been improved over the years. So these modalities are budget support, financial contributions, projects, technical cooperation, scholarships, administrative expenses with logistics, refugees assistance, in-kind donations, and R&D. Next, please. So this is an overview of recent years of data gathering. We have here a figure that shows the number of initiatives reported per year, which have increased. It's also important to note we have been able every year to increase the number of institutions that participate in our surveys and that actually provide data to the project, which is very good. Obviously, this also means that the data are not perfectly comparable year to year, but nonetheless, we think that we are improving the data sets by expanding the samples that we are able to have. And and to cover a more complete picture of the universe of Brazilian International Development Corporation. Here to the right, we have a total expenditure per year, which has fallen from 2021 to 2022. Actually, there's a lot of volatility here because the bulk of Brazilian International Development Corporation refers to core contributions to multilateral institutions, and these vary a lot from year to year. Next, please. Next. So as I mentioned, we have this cycle that that involves preparation and review of the report, submission of the data to UNCTAD and to the International Forum and TOSD, planning and preparation of the research, conduct of the research, and data analysis. This is, in a nutshell, the cycle that we follow. Obviously, it's more detailed here, but I will not go through this in detail. And I ask for the next slide, please. So the step one is to contact the database update. We have focal points in each institutions. We verify their contact information. We confirm that they remain the same. This changes, especially when there are changes in government, but oftentimes even when the government's the same, there are changes. And we conduct phone verifications to ensure the accuracy of the information that we have on focal points and contacts. Next. The step two, we update the materials that we have to guide and to support the institutions that provide data for the COBRADE project. These are essential to facilitate their participation in our research. Mind you, that a lot of these institutions have focal points who don't know anything about the project, actually know very little about what international cooperation is about, and even about the SDG 2030 agenda. So these materials are in fact very important. We have instructional guides. These are available at our website. We have manuals, and we have also tutorial videos. Next. As I mentioned, we have also organized workshops with these institutions, which have proved very useful. The third step is to send invitations. I already mentioned this. They're signed by the president of IPEA. And we have a digital platform that is used for this purpose. And then the institutions can go online and try to fill out the data form that we have made available to them. Next. Yeah, and this is more on the online form. Next, please. The fourth step is institutional follow-up. We conduct phone calls to ensure that institutions have received our invitations, that they're up on the schedule to gather and to provide the data, and that they don't have any doubts as to what they should include or not. And this is essential to guarantee the consistency of the data and that the institutions have the opportunity to participate and to do so as is expected of them. Thank you. Next. So the fifth step is engagement meetings with institutions. We hold these meetings to explain the research, and we establish dialogue channels. And again, this takes up much of the year. Next, please. And then once we have the data, we have to consolidate it and to analyze it. We conduct preliminary analysis. We see if there's anything odd or anything that stands out. We obtain, like I mentioned, additional information from other databases of the Brazilian Treasury and national budget. And this allows for cross-verification with governmental data sources. And we go back to the institutions when needed to see if, if everything is as it should be. Next, please. So the seventh step is the validation and final database construction. And it involves also producing the final report. Next. Next. So this allows us to gather data that provides a wealth of information on the initiatives of different ministries and agencies. Mind you, Brazilian International Development Corporation is very fragmented. There are a lot of governmental institutions involved. We also conduct data on South-North cooperation, even though that is not included in metrics, including the South-South cooperation framework. We are able to collect data on hospitalization of foreign nationals in Brazil. The Brazilian health system is free of charge to anyone who needs it in the country. And obviously total expenditures by Brazilian governmental institution, including those of technical cooperation. We have data on SDGs, including the primary SDGs and the targets, and a number of initiatives as well, by economic sector, by target, and by modality, as well as obviously the cooperation framework. Next, please. Now, crucially, unlike other countries that are represented here, including Mexico, we in Brazil, we do not have a legislation that obliges institutions to provide the data to IPEA and to the COBRADE project. So we rely on their willingness to do so. This is a voluntary initiative. Obviously, we do all we can to persuade them that this is something worth doing, even though it involves more work to civil servants that are oftentimes already overwhelmed. But it's an opportunity they have to showcase what nationally. Again, that's part of what we have to do. Next slide, please. Now, let me focus briefly in the time I have left on specifically on the South-South Cooperation Framework. How do we convert the data that we have for COBRADE project, which again predates the framework by many years, to provide the data to UNCTAD? We have to make adjustments and adaptations. In many cases, we have already adapted COBRADE itself to make this exercise easier. And the big challenge here is obviously Group C, because the other groups can be expressed in monetary terms, and we are from before. Next, please. So the monetary values, particularly those in Group A, are straightforward. Actually, the only financial cooperation that Brazil provides are the contributions to multilateral institutions, both core and non-core. Group B generally is drawn from what I mentioned as indirect expenditures. So, the costs of having experts engaging in activities abroad. Group C data we take from a field that we have in the spreadsheet that provides a description of each activity. And oftentimes that description gives non-monetary indicators, which are used then for that purpose. And again, we're revising the form and the spreadsheets and the fields that we have in them to make this conversion easier and quicker. And we are also looking into the possibilities to automatize the data, both data gathering and conversion processes. This would make it a lot less labor intensive and faster. But we're still not there yet. And I think actually other countries here perhaps are more advanced in that regard. Next, please. So the next slides, they provide some examples of or some highlights, if you will, of the data that we put into the framework. So we have here scholarships for non-Brazilians, which are provided by the Ministry of Education. And that's an example of Group C. So there's a non-financial delivery, as are donations of anti-arachnid serum. Here again, it is expressed in number of bottles at the last column. Next, please. Here we have examples of contributions to international organizations, and the modality would be in Group A, 8.3.1 in particular. as well as voluntary contributions to those organizations, which refer to 8.3.2. Next, please. And then we have examples from Group B as well, which would be courses on aviation for aviation professionals, which would correspond to modality B.5. We also have here an example from Fiocruz, which is a national health institute that has provided assistance for the implementation, development, or maintenance of human milk banks in modality B. Next, please. This is a tentative conversion table that has actually been prepared by Cristina a while ago, and she adapted in light of the changes that have been made to the framework. So we have on the first column the South-South Cooperation Framework. On the second one is COBRADI, which is our national database or national metric, and then we have TASD on the last one. And again, I don't have the time to go through all of these different modalities, but there are some correspondence, in particularly between what we do internally in Brazil and TASD, but with the framework as well. Next, it refers to Group A, and here you can see Group B. Oftentimes, modalities are not available from COBRADI, and oftentimes Brazil does not provide them, so that's not an issue. And you can see this here as well. Next. Next, please. These are examples from Group C. Again, this is the trickier part because it involves non-monetary indicators, and these we know are more challenging in several ways. They're not available in the other metrics. Originally, they weren't available in COBRADI either, but they're the most innovative aspect of the framework, we would argue. And in a way, so they're the most important as well. Next, please. Here are some examples. For instance, during, I'm sorry, apparently my connection's unstable. Can you still hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. So these are examples of data that was provided in different years. And again, the interaction we have in institutions. Over time, these institutions, they learn, they become more familiar with the subject, and they're better able to respond to what we're asking for. Obviously, this can all change if the focal points or if the people who are working with us change in these institutions as well. But it's an evolving process, and I think it is becoming easier over time. Next, please. So we have here a number of best practices that we have identified. We have been able to improve our methodology and data collection. We have been able to adapt them for these international metrics. We have been able to expand the number of institutions that respond to our surveys and to have better validation and feedback mechanisms as well. We have also improved the preparation support materials for these institutions, as well as the way to approach them and interact with them. Next. And we have learned a lot of lessons as well. Like I said, perhaps two of our main challenges now are to try to automatize the process and to also try to come up with some legal or normative framework at the governmental level, which will facilitate obtaining the data. Next, please. And so just to close, this is our team. This was one of the questions that were originally posed. How many people are working with this? We have currently 5 researchers counting myself, and they're displayed here. 2 of them are civil servants from IPEA, and 3 of them are hired consultants. Next. And I'll stop here. I hope I haven't gone too much over time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andre, and thanks, Amadine, for stepping in with the sharing. I think if we were, trying to understand the whole complexity of the South-South cooperation, this is really a treasure to dig in and to look into, like, all this vast experience that you have. But luckily, we also have Colombia and Mexico who have been very actively on this. So we would propose now to continue with this. So thank you again, Andre, for your very exhaustive presentation. I would like now to turn to Colombia. Manuela, if you can start with your presentation so we learn how the South-South cooperation is being addressed in Colombia. Your screen is coming up.
Okay, can you see the screen well?
We can see the screen very well. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Manuela Vivas. I have been working with UNCTAD and the project more or less since 2023. And I'm going to present to you the case study of Colombia. And as well to present the agency, because taking into account what we saw yesterday, there are many different entities involved in this process, and the institutional setup is different when we see the different countries that are involved in the process. So I work in APC Colombia, that it's the Colombia's Presidential Agency for International Cooperation, and it's an agency that is part of the presidential sector of Colombia, and our objective is to manage, guide, and provide technical coordination of the international cooperation that it's received and granted by Colombia, specifically the non-reimbursable cooperation. As well, we implement, manage, and support the channeling and execution of international cooperation resources, programs, and projects, and we do this in accordance and with a strong relationship with our Foreign Affairs Ministry that defines the foreign policy objectives, and as well with the National Development Plan. And regarding the mandate of producing international cooperation data, APC Colombia was created by the Decree 4152 of 2011, and it says that we have 2 specific functions that can be related in the production of data, but also the production of inputs to take good decisions in the negotiations of agreements, treaties, and frameworks of cooperation. So we have the function 5 that it says that APC Colombia has to provide inputs and support our Foreign Affairs Ministry and other public entities that require it in the process of negotiation of agreements and other cooperation mechanisms. And we do it so by having good information and good data to really inform well this policy that it's being negotiated among the countries of the Global South. And also we have the function 11 that it's directly related, and it says that we need to produce, process, and share information and knowledge for the analysis of the dynamics of international cooperation in Colombia. And specifically regarding South-South cooperation, I work for the South-South and Triangular Cooperation Directorate. We are in charge of the design, execution, monitoring, and evaluation of the international. For doing this process as well, we need to have good data because it allows us to do the monitoring, the evaluation of initiatives, and as well to keep track of what are the projects that Colombia is managing with our partners of the Global South. And as well, the function 11, it says that we need to implement strategies to promote the management and knowledge information regarding our initiatives of international cooperation. So to keep track of all the different initiatives that I'm going to talk about later, we need to have this data systematized and updated to see how many initiatives do we have, which of them are ongoing, which of them are already finalized, and how can we still manage to have all our international cooperation data organized to take good decisions. Colombia has a dual role in international cooperation. We are not only a recipient country of technical and financial resources provided by our traditional partners of the official development assistance, but as well we are a provider of international cooperation to other countries in the Global South, specifically technical cooperation and knowledge exchange. And in the scope of the diversity of the South-South cooperation in Colombia, we wanted to bring this information because in the data processing, the data analysis and production, we need to standardize the information, but we have a very different set of projects and initiatives that we manage among different modalities. For example, we have bilateral, regional, and triangular projects. In the bilateral ones, we can have more control of the follow-up because there are only 2 countries involved, and we can negotiate in which formats we're going to do the different parts of the project cycle, the formulation, the budget, the execution, and then the evaluation of the initiatives. But then we can have triangular projects that are born because a traditional partner did a call for proposals and they are going to use their own formats. So we need to talk with the different entities and see how we can gather all the information, all the data that we need from each of the projects. And we have as well regional projects that are a part of our strategic alliances that I'm going to speak more about later. But in these ones, we have partners that are international organizations that we provide some resources and they execute the initiatives. And with that, we need to negotiate as well how we're going to receive the reports of the execution of the initiatives and how they are going to present information, in which formats, if they do so in our formats of the South-South Cooperation Toolkit, or if they have their own formats, but to really gather all the information that we have from all of the projects. As well, we have differences among countries. We have seen that in this exercise of the framework that countries have different concepts of what can be taken into account as South-South cooperation. This means that we need as well to have a dialogue to speak in the same language and see that all of the countries are understanding more or less the same when we're speaking about South-South cooperation projects and how they can be structured. We have different formats to do the follow-up and the managing of the cooperation initiatives. So as well, we need to negotiate which formats are going to be used and if the formats are gathering all the information that we need to in order to have the monitoring of the initiatives. And also in the ways of doing project monitoring, we in Colombia in the joint commissions have with the partners of the Latin American countries, follow-up meetings every 3 months for looking how the cooperation programs are advancing, but not all of the countries are in agreement with them. Some prefer to do it every 6 months or every year. So we need as well to negotiate with the help of our Foreign Affairs Ministry how we are going to do the project monitoring. In Colombia, we also
Manuela, maybe speak a bit slowly for interpreters. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We have different types of entities participating in South-South cooperation initiatives in Colombia. We have public, private, national, local authorities, as well academy, civil society, and international organizations. This means that we need to take into account that not all of the entities are going to have the same knowledge about how South-South cooperation works, which are the principles, how to do the follow-up, why it is important for them to deliver us reports. So we need to be very pedagogic with them and showcase them that South-South cooperation has some agreements in the times in which we are going to receive the reports of the execution of the activities, and as well on how it functions related on how to fund the knowledge exchanges. So This means we need to be in a constant dialogue with the different entities, and we do so through our national cooperation system. And we have as well different cooperation frameworks. We have the joint commissions, that is the mechanism in which we work with the countries of the region, with the Latin American, the Caribbean region. These are mechanisms in which we negotiate, approve, and execute cooperation programs that are composed of a series of projects, and they last for 2 years. We have this mechanism ongoing for a couple of years, and every time a joint commission ends, a cooperation program ends, we renew them, and we generate another cooperation program. As well, we have the bilateral projects. This is the way that we work mainly with the countries of Africa and Asia. This means they are not necessarily related to a cooperation program. We have as well triangular cooperation. As I was mentioning before, here we have the relationship of a third partner that can be a traditional one, and they can have their own formats, their own ways to do the calls for proposals. The strategic alliances, that it's a mechanism in which we work with international organizations to do a regional program, a regional project, and it has a wider scope of actors involved, and it has as well a wider results because it's going to have in most of the cases more budget. And finally, we have the humanitarian assistance, and we do this through our cooperation fund, and we do it by request of our foreign affairs ministry, that they request them to us in cases that countries have a humanitarian crisis or a situation going on because of natural disasters. To showcase a little bit about South-South cooperation initiatives right now in Colombia, we have with the countries of the Latin America and the Caribbean 78 projects in execution and 28 to be initiated. As well, we have 20 cooperation programs, 19 bilateral and 1 regional with the countries of the CARICOM, Aruba, and Curaçao. 6 triangular projects, and some strategic alliances. As Mr. Ronaldo said in his opening remarks, we just signed 2 weeks ago the agreement with ECLAC, and it's going to help fostering and strengthening the capacities of the countries of the region to continue reporting data, and specifically regarding the report for UNCTAD. We have in Africa 8 ongoing bilateral projects and some strategic alliances. And in Asia, 16 ongoing projects and strategic alliances with ESCAP and UNESCO. To say some specific characteristics of Colombia, of the EPC Colombia, and our process of producing data, we have the value quantification and aggregation model. It has 2 components. The first one is about quantification. By this model, we can quantify the direct costs of the knowledge exchange activities related to the per diems, airfare cost, and translation services that are required to do these kind of initiatives. But as well, we have the indirect costs, and we gather this information through our formats, and we ask the entities how much was the cost of the technical hours invested by the experts that worked on a specific initiative. And the other component that it's more related of the aggregation model, the evaluation of the initiatives, but it's important to mention it because we have the view that the thing that it's important in those projects is not only how much money was invested, but how we created added value with the participation of the Global South entities in these projects. So we, with this, see how the knowledge was appropriated by the demanding entities, how they built new knowledge, if that was the case, if the relationship was deepened through these knowledge exchange projects, if they shared the information of the project in their social media, in the webpage of the entity, if the initiatives were aligned to the SDGs, especially the targets, and if they have differential approaches, we give some extra points if they have a gender approach, an ethnic approach, disability approach, for example. And also, we have other 3 specific characteristics of how we do South-South cooperation in Colombia and how we gather this information. First of all, it's our South-South cooperation toolkit that composes of a series of conceptual, methodological, and procedural resources that facilitate all the process of the cycle of life of the projects, the design, the formulation, and the implementation. We share with our entities, with our national entities, these specific formats that allow them to formulate and to report the execution of the activities, and as well to do the closure of the projects. With this information, we take it as a data team to analyze how the different projects are evolving. And for the entities, it's an amount of resources that help them to do a standardized process of the cycle of life of the projects. As well, we have our system, our cooperation system, that it's called CCROPS. We are currently adapting the tool for the needs of South-South cooperation because we need this to be a tool that helps us do the follow-up of the initiatives. So we need it not only to be like a repository of information, but to allow us to update the data every day because our projects are advancing something almost every week. So we need it to be like a live tool that can be updated at any time. And finally, our International Cooperation and Assistance Fund, the FOCAI. And it's important to this process because we can have firsthand the information of how much the knowledge exchange initiatives and activities are costing to the agency, because we cover with this fund the cost related to the airfare tickets, to the accommodation, internal transportation, translations, and stuff like that that projects may require. So we don't need to go out to the other entities and look for that information because we have it in the agency as well. About the process of how we produce the technical information of our projects is a process that it's happening almost every day in the agency. We have a APC Colombia, specifically the South-South Cooperation Directorate. We have country leaders that are people that have in charge the different cooperation initiatives with our Global South partners, and they are speaking every day with the technical entities in Colombia. As I said before, we have all types of entities, and they are demanding the information on how the specific projects are advancing. So we receive that flow of information, but at the same time, we're speaking with our partners that are the entities responsible for international cooperation in the partners of the Global South. That can be cooperation agencies, ministries of foreign affairs, planning secretariats, among others. And we share with them the information of the Colombian entities. They share with us what their own entities report to them, and we do the cross-check and the validation of the information that we have the same data for all the different cooperation initiatives. So, for example, an entity in Colombia can report that they have already done, I don't know, 3 of 10 activities, but to the other country, their own entities reported a different number. So we need to contact again the entities and see if they can check the information, and we can have like the same version of the execution of the project, and to really have it as a consensus among all the parties involved. This is a process that it's being realized every day. And then the South-South and Triangular Cooperation Data Team gathers this information and systematizes it in our tool that we currently have to keep track of all the initiatives that Colombia has. And finally, to speak a little bit about Colombia's report to the framework, and something that was mentioned in yesterday's session is to domesticate the frameworks and the categories specifically. So in Colombia, we took the information that we already had about all our cooperation initiatives and see how it could fit in all of the categories that were in the framework. So we reported in 2023 the following information. For Group A, we reported the component 8.2.1, the grants for development purposes. Here we reported the information about our strategic alliances, that are the regional projects that we do with international organizations, and we provide the resources for them to execute the initiative. As well, we reported the component 8.2.2, that it's grants for humanitarian purposes. Here we reported the information of the different humanitarian assistance Colombia did in 2023 to the partners of the Global South. And we as well reported component 8.3.1, the contributions to international organizations. We reported the annual contribution that APC Colombia does through the Cooperation Fund to the Pacific Alliance. The group B, I can say that in the component B.7.2, it's the biggest amount of data that we have, because it is related to the per diems, daily allowances, and airfares that can be used to facilitate knowledge exchange activities. So that's like mainly what we do through our foci, and that's the information that we reported in 2023. All these costs related to the exchange activities that we do with our partner countries of the Global South. In the component B.7.3, in the services, materials, equipment, and supplies, we reported the translation services we provided to the different entities in Colombia that are working in countries and in regions that don't speak Spanish. So we do it with the countries of Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean, that they need the translation in order to facilitate the projects. And in B.10, that it's related to the administrative costs for the provision of South-South cooperation, we reported the information in 2023 of the renewal of our joint commissions. As I said before, this is a process that requires negotiation and approval of cooperation programs, and this means sometimes people need to travel from one country to another to formalize the program. So in 2023, we have different renewals of the programs, and we reported the data related to the costs of our technicals going to the other countries to formalize the cooperation programs. And finally, Group C, we are not reporting right now because in our different formats, we don't have like the categories to gather the information, but we're trying to work on specifically to report more information about scholarships, because it's also related to an exercise that we're doing currently with CEGIP. But right now in APC Colombia, and with the information that we have, we're just reporting Group A and Group B. And that would be all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manuela. I think it was a very interesting way to see essentially how the South-South cooperation is taking place in Colombia. And I think it's important what you said, is the countries do have different concepts. And of course, there is a way to actually address it. And this is, so today's and yesterday's events are essentially ways or means to actually get there. So we have the same understanding and we know what we're talking about. But similar to what Andrea was saying before, materials are very important. So they had the manual guidelines and all, you have the toolkit. So I think those are all very important elements. Trying to be observant of the time, I think this is all very interesting discussion and all very interesting presentations. We still have the third country of the trio. So we have Mexico with us, and we would like to invite Mr. Rafael to present the work on the South-South cooperation measurement in Mexico. Senor Gomez, the floor is yours.
Boyan, can you?
Sorry, we cannot hear you. Rafael, can you start?
Rafael, can you try to speak just to see if we can hear you? Apparently, you are also connected on your phone. Can you maybe try to use your phone and we will share the presentation? Boyan, can you share the PPT?
Of course, let me do that.
And just So Rafael, can you, Alfonso said you are also connected with your phone. Do you have a phone?
En el teléfono, por favor, Rafael, aprieta el botón aprieta el botoncito donde está el micrófono. Ahorita tiene una tacha para que podamos
¿Ya me escuchan?
escucharte. Listo, ahí está. Perfecto.
¿Ahora sí me escuchan?
Perfecto,
Yes.
Rafael, ahí te escuchamos.
¿Sí?
Sí.
But we have an echo.
Solamente cancela el de el del
de la pantalla.
video, el de la pantalla,
Ok.
porque se está repitiendo. Ahí tenemos un eco.
¿Con eso así está bien?
A ver. No, tienes un doble eco.
Tengo nada más el botón de la pantalla. Apagué el de la pantalla y tengo abierto el del botón, el del micrófono.
Sí, a lo mejor salte de la otra sesión, el de tu computadora, para que te quede nada más con el celular.
¿Me salgo de la computadora?
Sí, mejor, para que te podamos
A
escuchar.
ver.
Al cabo te van a presentar aquí.
A ver, ¿ya me escuchan bien así?
Ahí te escuchamos perfecto. Ahí está mucho mejor.
Sí.
Sí. Gracias.
Nada más de la presentación. Está en inglés, pero la voy a hacer en español. Sí, sin problema.
No problem.
¿Sí me escuchan?
Perfecto,
Yes,
en
yes.
español. Hay traducción.
Sin problema, Rafael. Adelante.
Ok. Sí, buenos días. Soy Santos Rafael Gómez. Soy director aquí en la Agencia Mexicana de Cooperación Internacional. Estoy en la Agencia Mexicana de Cooperación Internacional para el Desarrollo y iniciaré la presentación de lo que es el perfil de México. La siguiente, por favor. Next, please.
Yes, trying to move it. Okay, voila.
Sí. En determinado momento México juega un papel dual en la cooperación internacional para el desarrollo. Aunque somos miembros de la OCDE, nos consideramos todavía como receptores de cooperación y la parte de oferente la trabajamos básicamente como hoy día se conoce la cooperación sur-sur o la cooperación horizontal. Principalmente trabajamos la cooperación horizontal o cooperación sur-sur con países de América Latina, en particular con el Caribe. Ahí sí somos completamente oferentes y tratamos de alguna manera México en el rol de la arquitectura de la cooperación internacional, trata de ser puente entre los países donantes tradicionales y los receptores. Más adelante explicaré un poco cómo es la cooperación que desarrolla México en este sentido, ¿no? Tenemos como donantes tradicionales a Alemania, Japón, a Suecia, a Francia, a España, a USAID, ¿no? Y de un nuevo horizonte que está como nuevos oferentes de cooperación, Kuwait, Arabia Saudita, Qatar, Turquía, China, India, entre ellos México, Chile, Brasil, ¿sí? Y Emiratos Árabes y Sudáfrica. Los tipos de cooperación que da México en particular. La siguiente, por favor. México da principalmente, next please. México tienes los diferentes esquemas de cooperación que da México, a nivel bilateral, a nivel multilateral es donde principalmente aparece la cooperación de recepción, es donde más proyectos tenemos con los organismos del sistema de Naciones Unidas. A nivel bilateral, pues bueno, con los países desarrollados adicionales, es como aportan la cooperación con México y como socio estratégico, de alguna manera México ha fungido un papel pionero en esto de la cooperación triangular, principalmente con Japón, con Alemania, con Francia, con España. Nos han tomado como apoyo para este tipo de cooperación por el lenguaje, la idiosincrasia, las costumbres. Entonces eso ha permitido que la cooperación triangular mexicana tenga un mayor impacto y se le dé un poco más de importancia dentro de los diferentes esquemas de cooperación que da México, ¿no? Está la cooperación regional, la cooperación sur-sur. Les decía yo, como cooperante dual, nosotros también somos receptores, oferentes y básicamente la cooperación sur-sur y la cooperación internacional. Por el tipo de cooperación que damos, asistencia técnica, somos el desarrollo de capacidades de acuerdo a programas bilaterales, regionales y cursos de capacitación técnicas en línea, ¿no? Los expertos mexicanos son muy de buena manera recibidos, reconocidos internacionalmente por su capacidad, su expertise en los diferentes temas que maneja la Agencia Mexicana la Agencia Mexicana de Cooperación, ¿no? Con los organismos internacionales prevalecen proyectos de infraestructura, también siempre y cuando alineados a los objetivos nacionales, ¿no? La cooperación educativa predomina las becas que otorga México para estudiantes extranjeros, ¿no? Para sus capacitaciones en las instituciones de educación superior nacional y las residencias culturales, ¿no? Que es el intercambio de experiencias, etcétera. La ayuda humanitaria se cuenta con un fondo de ayuda humanitaria, el cual está disponible tanto cuando terceros países sufren consecuencias por huracanes, incendios, etcétera, o cuando también nosotros en determinado momento nos vemos afectados por este tipo de desastres naturales, ¿no? Incluida lo de la pandemia y esas cosas, ¿no? Y se hace una facilitación para la integración del desarrollo regional. Se trabaja bastante con Proyecto Mesoamérica. Ahí tenemos el Proyecto Mesoamérica dos vertientes, la parte económica y la parte social. Cada una trabaja de acuerdo a su tema para el desarrollo de la región, principalmente de Mesoamérica, y con la Asociación de Estados del Caribe, ¿no? Ahí donde básicamente prevalecen muchos proyectos de tanto de desastres como luego lo solicita la propia región sobre cursos, talleres, capacitaciones en materia de turismo y hotelería, ¿no? Principalmente. En la siguiente, por favor, next please. La agencia tiene como prioridades temáticas. Next, please. Please. La siguiente lámina, por favor. Sí, las principales prioridades temáticas que nos establece la Ley de Cooperación Internacional para el Desarrollo son el desarrollo social, el desarrollo económico, la educación, ciencia, tecnología e innovación, la cultura, medio ambiente, cambio climático, salud, seguridad pública y prevención de desastres. Hoy día tenemos en línea con el Plan Nacional de Desarrollo las nuevas temáticas para alcanzar los resultados que serían en temas de migración, infraestructura, movilidad humana, seguridad alimentaria, gobernanza, Estado de Derecho y prevención de violencias. La de movilidad humana, hoy día la presidenta Claudia Sheinbaum le está dando bastante prioridad, donde se trata de ver que se respeten principalmente los derechos humanos, el desarrollo sustentable, equidad de género, etcétera, ¿no? Que sean más inclusivos y que tengan tanto prioridad e injerencia en los pueblos o las comunidades más desfavorecidas, incluida la LGTB y los pueblos afromexicanos con los que contamos, y darle también cierta prioridad a los niños, a las niñas, a los jóvenes y a los adolescentes. Como prioridades transversales tenemos la igualdad de género, pleno respeto y promoción de los derechos humanos y combate a la corrupción, ¿no? En materia de recepción, como les decía, recibimos principalmente de organismos internacionales y a nivel bilaterales con España, Estados Unidos, Japón, Reino Unido, Turquía, Japón y Europa y el sistema de Naciones Unidas, ¿no? Por el lado de oferta, trabajamos principalmente con áreas prioritarias para México, como son Centroamérica y el Caribe. Ahí en estos últimos años ha sobresalido los proyectos de Sembrando Vida y Jóvenes Construyendo el Futuro, que es algo, si lo vemos de alguna manera, innovador en la cooperación mexicana, ¿no? Y aparte de que se cuentan con fondos de cooperación en Sudamérica como Chile y Uruguay, normalmente México o la MEXID no había dado recursos directos para poblaciones, en este caso, de migrantes, ¿no? Es primera vez que México pone recursos en este sentido. Entonces la anteriormente, simple y sencillamente, principalmente la oferta de cooperación mexicana era el expertise de los técnicos mexicanos, intercambio de conocimientos, intercambio de ideas, etcétera, ¿no? Capacitación, ya sea fuera a través de talleres o seminarios, etcétera, pero no se había dado eso, como les comento, salvo en los fondos de México-Uruguay y México-Chile, donde México aportaba cierto monto económico para el desarrollo, principalmente en este caso de Guatemala, Honduras y El Salvador, y para inicios de este año se está expandiendo a otros países del Cono Sur, ¿no? También tenemos con América del Sur, tenemos la Alianza del Pacífico, donde ya hay un fuerte impulso para el desarrollo de la cooperación y para que se beneficiar los países miembros de la Alianza del Pacífico, ¿no? Con Asia tenemos también en cooperación. En África, yo creo, en México, para esta próxima administración se está considerando como una prioridad, ya que si bien les puedo comentar que es el único región del mundo donde México no cuenta con convenios de cooperación básico, ¿no? O sea, se ha trabajado principalmente en dos proyectos, Nistamal y lo de el Nopal, pero han sido proyectos muy específicos y en general con la parte de África no tenemos convenios de cooperación, iniciativa que se va a tratar de importar y fortalecer e implementar durante la presente administración federal. La cuantificación de la oferta mexicana. Next, please, por favor. Next, please, por favor. La siguiente lámina, por favor. Aquí en esta, la cuantificación que hace la MEXID para la cooperación que ofrece la tenemos con un año de desfase. No, la tenemos ahora sí que al año vigente porque se trabaja con la Administración Pública Federal, que es la atribución que nos da la Ley de Cooperación Internacional. Observaba presentaciones de los compañeros de Colombia y de Brasil, y ellos sí tienen participación de los de iniciativa privada y organizaciones de la sociedad civil. En el caso de México, solo tenemos atribuciones con la Administración Pública Federal o las dependencias del Estado mexicano. No están obligados ni sujetos a que nos presenten la información el sector privado, las organizaciones de la sociedad civil, los mismos estados o municipios del país y instituciones de educación superior privadas, ¿no? Entonces, para 2023, México aportó en millones de dólares, 208.209 millones de dólares, ¿no? Y como receptor, les decía, se subdivide, o como oferente, se subdivide la cooperación mexicana en la siguiente lámina, por favor. Sí, como verán ustedes ahí, la composición de la oferta mexicana de cooperación internacional se compone de las becas que se otorgan a países, a compañeros o estudiantes extranjeros que vienen a estudiar a México, ¿no? Las misiones de paz, que eso ya es otro tipo, las contribuciones de programas a proyectos y fondos de cooperación, y la cooperación de la cooperación de la oferta técnica. En este sentido, la cuantificación que hace México para la cooperación técnica científica, como les decía, principalmente se compone, hay un algoritmo matemático en los sistemas de información, tanto en el RENCID, donde básicamente trabajamos con la Administración Pública Federal, y en el Infoamexid, que es un sistema informático que es uso exclusivo internamente de la MEXID y de los compañeros que administran en su momento los programas de cooperación. Pero el algoritmo matemático que tenemos ahí es dependiendo el estatus que tengas en la administración pública federal, ya sea desde jefe de departamento, subdirector, director o director general, y esto se pone de acuerdo a los sueldos establecidos por el gobierno federal en la administración pública federal. Se toma como referencia, se hace un promedio de cuántos días intervinieron para hacer la preparación o la impartición del taller o del seminario, la pasantía, etcétera. Se hace un promedio y en base a eso se hace una cuantificación de cuánto costaría o cuánto cuesta la participación del experto, del técnico mexicano en el país extranjero, ¿no? O también cuando cuando es de este lado. Ese es más o menos el algoritmo matemático que tenemos para cuantificar el valor o del experto mexicano. Ese algoritmo matemático, como les decía, está en estos dos sistemas de información, tanto en el RENCID como en el Infoamexid. En cuanto a ayuda humanitaria, también hay un algoritmo matemático ahí donde se pone, bueno, en esta parte de la cooperación técnica también se incluyen los pasajes, el pasaje internacional, se incluye el hospedaje, viáticos, etcétera, ¿no? Y en ayuda humanitaria se cuantifica no solo las toneladas de víveres que se manden a países extranjeros que están solicitando la ayuda, sino también se toma en determinado momento si son barcos o son los aviones del ejército mexicano, si son los barcos, la tripulación, el costo de traslado del barco hasta el lugar que se necesita, incluye todos los servicios, ¿no? De luz, ¿cómo se llama? Ya sea, ahí se me fue el nombre, la gasolina, el diésel, etcétera, etcétera, todos estos gastos que se llevan, ¿no? Y dentro de esa ayuda humanitaria, pues también, de acuerdo a la Secretaría de Marina o del Ejército Mexicano, depende también el nivel que lleve cada uno de los tripulantes, ya sea en los barcos o en los aviones o helicópteros, es cómo se va cuantificando el costo de la cooperación mexicana para ese tipo de ayuda, independientemente del tonelaje que se lleve en víveres, ¿no? Y el componente fuerte de la cooperación mexicana, pues están las cuotas y contribuciones a los organismos internacionales. Normalmente las contribuciones como parte de la oferta mexicana de cooperación, las cuotas internacionales andan en un promedio arriba del 50% de lo que representa la cooperación internacional, ¿no? Ahora, yo creo que en este punto es importante resaltar, al no ser México un donador tradicional, sí, es importante ver que a pesar de ello, que la cooperación técnica que da el país, de acuerdo al expertise que se tengan de los técnicos mexicanos, ha tenido muy buenos impactos en los diferentes países con los que se ha trabajado. O sea, en la medida de las posibilidades y capacidades del país, se ha desarrollado y una confianza bastante importante en el expertise, repito, de los técnicos mexicanos, y el conocimiento que han llevado a otros países ha sido bastante muy bien recibido. Entonces, a pesar de que no damos y ni nos vamos a comparar nunca con los países donadores tradicionales por los montos que ellos manejan, pero este monto les decía yo, en 2023, de 209 millones de dólares, pareciera mínima la aportación en cooperación internacional, pero de acuerdo a sus posibilidades y capacidades, este impacto de la cooperación nacional ha tenido buen recibimiento en la cooperación horizontal y la cooperación sur-sur que desarrolla México, principalmente con todos los países de su mismo nivel de desarrollo económico, ¿no? En la siguiente presentación,
Rafael,
por favor. Sí.
un favor, queda poquito tiempo, te pedimos si puedes apurar un poquito. Gracias.
Ok. Bueno, mira, si quieres pasamos a nivel nacional, RENCID, variables de la metodología, ya más o menos las expliqué. Si pasamos a elementos no cuantificables de la cooperación, casi es la antepenúltima presentación. Elementos no cuantificables. Siguiente, por favor. Por el tiempo. La siguiente. La siguiente, elementos. La
¿En esa?
siguiente, por favor.
Ah,
Esta
next one,
es la que
please.
acabo de explicar sobre la oferta,
Ok.
becas, contribuciones. En esta de los elementos no cuantificables. México no considera dentro de la cooperación que ofrece México las actividades de promoción económica y los programas de promoción cultural. En ese sentido, inclusive a partir de hubo una nueva reforma al reglamento interior de la Cancillería mexicana, y Amexid en 2011, cuando nace la agencia, sí era parte de la agencia la promoción económica y la promoción cultural. A partir de la modificación del reglamento de interior de Cancillería durante el 2021, junio del 2021, la promoción económica y la promoción cultural quedó fuera totalmente de la cooperación de la Amexid, ¿no? Y de acuerdo desde los eventos, proyectos y acuerdos y contribuciones que solo benefician a México, algo ahí mucho tiene que ver, por ejemplo, cuando se trabaja en Proyecto Mesoamérica, donde también México hace su aportación, pero él mismo es beneficiado de esas aportaciones. Eso no lo consideramos tampoco como cooperación internacional. Pagos a organismos internacionales a cambio de algún servicio, eso México tampoco lo considera como cooperación internacional. Acciones de cooperación con países desarrollados, incluidos los becas. La oferta mexicana de cooperación en la parte de becas considera solo a los estudiantes de países de renta media, no los becarios beneficiados de los países desarrollados. Y las acciones internacionales sin propósito de desarrollo tampoco es parte que no se considera como cooperación. Y la participación de funcionarios sectoriales en eventos internacionales no enmarcados en un proyecto. Nuestros funcionarios o jefes pueden participar en un sinnúmero de reuniones, pero si no están enmarcados en materia de cooperación o en algún tema de polis de cooperación, no se considera cooperación, la oferta mexicana de cooperación. La previsión de equipos o servicios militares tampoco, México no considera como cooperación este tipo de apoyo. Subsidios oficiales a empresas privadas tampoco se considera como cooperación internacional, y las conferencias académicas, investigaciones que no guardan relación directa con los problemas de los países en desarrollo. Ya nada más la última presentación, por favor, la del ciclo anual de la cooperación internacional. De acuerdo al artículo 31 de la Ley de Cooperación, a la MEXID nos corresponde hacer esa cuantificación. Como les decía, esta cuantificación que realizamos es a través del RENCID, donde se hace, en el RENCID únicamente se registra la cooperación técnica científica que realizan las dependencias de la Administración Pública Federal. Inclusive ahí se les pregunta también si en determinado momento esa cooperación que ellos están implementando pasa por Amexid o no pasa por Amexid. ¿En qué momentos puede no pasar por Amexid? Como les decía, no tenemos atribuciones de mandato sobre gobiernos estatales y municipales. Los gobiernos estatales y municipales están haciendo cualquier cantidad de cooperación, pero como no están obligados a reportarnos, muchas veces las dependencias lo trabajan con ellos, y allí es cuando nosotros captamos algo, no toda la cooperación de estados y municipios, algo de lo que se trabaja en estados y municipios a través de las entidades de la Administración Pública Federal, ¿no? Y la parte de el proceso de cómo se desarrolla esta metodología, normalmente en octubre, noviembre, diciembre, se empieza a capacitar al personal que es encargado, responsable del registro de la cooperación. En enero, febrero, marzo se abren los portales para que las instituciones empiecen a subir toda la información, y ya después se cierran, marzo, abril, dependiendo del periodo, y se analiza punto por punto lo que registraron las dependencias de la Administración Pública Federal, para ver esto, ¿no? Si es cooperación, esto sí es cooperación, esto no es cooperación, esto sí, y se ve punto a punto, vis a vis, con cada una de las dependencias y cada una de las actividades que ellos registraron. Posteriormente, ya que se hizo todo ese filtro y se recabó paralelamente por otros lados la cooperación internacional, a las cuotas a organismos internacionales, las becas, las misiones de paz, etcétera, etcétera. Todo este trabajo es paralelo a lo que cuando se trabaja en el RENCI, nos permite analizar la información, y entonces sí, ahí en agosto, septiembre ya se presenta un preliminar, un resumen de lo que se recopiló con toda esta información, se presenta a la dirección ejecutiva. Ahora la maestra Alejandra, la directora ejecutiva, se presenta para su valoración, y ahí ya con ellos y el visto bueno y toda la fundamentación que se le da a la información, nos dan el visto bueno para que en determinado momento, cuando se realiza normalmente la segunda sesión del Consejo Consultivo, que es el máximo órgano que tiene la MEXIC y que nos establece la ley de cooperación, ahí ya se da a conocer los resultados de la cuantificación de la oferta mexicana de cooperación del año anterior que nos corresponda, ¿no? Por mi parte es todo, y muchas gracias por su atención. Y para mayor información, en la última están mi correo electrónico, y buen día. Buenos días acá por México.
Muchísimas
Eso
gracias,
es todo,
Rafael,
gracias.
por tu presentación,
Sí.
muy amable.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think we are now full of wisdom from Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, which makes us think, okay, now we're ready to start collecting data on the South-South cooperation. Well, we know it's not an easy task. So unfortunately, we're not exactly there yet. What I would like to use a few remaining minutes, and please forgive me for abusing the powers vested in me by the organizers to actually run this through. So we have a few more minutes. So what I would like to show you a little bit what I said, and we promised at the beginning, is a kind of a mock-up of the South-South Cooperation Data Insights. So let me just share my screen. There you go. Okay, so UNCTAD is producing so-called data insights, and we have been working closely with Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico right now on the South-South Cooperation Data Insights. I'm sharing it here. It still has a draft over it. It was supposed to go out today. I need to apologize from our end. There's some minor challenges. We will be sharing a link to the online thing as soon as it is out in the coming few days. But just to show essentially what potential data would, or what data visualizations would look like based on this. So you will see that there will be a map, notably on the Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, and these are the countries, the recipient countries, and you will see how many activities are being conducted in those regions. Interesting observation is that there is a lot on the non-financial modalities which are central to the South-South cooperation, and on the non-financial, non-monetized group C, for example, in the sample that has been used for this, so the scholarships, humanitarian assistance, and technical cooperation are the leading ones. Different SDGs. If you remember, we have been discussing on the South-South cooperation within the 2030 development agenda. Different SDGs are targeted when different activities on the South-South cooperation. And we can clearly see that some of those are stepping up, such as the number 4 on the education, industry and innovation, number 9, number 8 on decent work and partnership, but also in the number 3 on the enhancing the health. So these are important elements, and on the sectors that are being benefited or targeted by the activities, education in the sample has really been brought up as a major one. This, we believe, is also an interesting element to showcase that bilateral South-South cooperation activities are really driving the South-South cooperation. So this was just a teaser, but of course we will share the elements as soon as they are out. Will those data insights. Again, please, a disclaimer needs to be added. So this is based on preliminary data from Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. Huge exclamation mark preliminary, because even though they have, and we have seen it today, they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of data themselves. It is not an easy task. It is not a straightforward task to move from whatever national systems they have and whatever national requirements to move to another reporting for the UN framework. There were some differences. There are still some challenges, but luckily we are addressing those together. What we are also working on, and I think this is a very useful information, something that we have also seen from the presentations today, there needs to be support in materials, in tools, and so on. We are working very closely right now with the partners to develop an online data collection tool to actually facilitate the data reporting by the countries on the South-South cooperation. As soon as this one is completed and final tested, of course, this will also be revealed. And an important element that I can share an info right now is that we are also working very closely on e-learning module. So maybe I can just ask Amandine for a quick run of a video before I take the floor afterwards. Thank you very much, Amandine. This was yet another of the teasers. I see there was a question in the chat from Judith whether the manual provides more clarity on groups B and C. The answer is yes. The framework, the manual, and also the e-learning is essentially set up to it can provide further and detailed information, including on the examples. Let me close this off with a few final words on the where, what, when, how, and who next. So what are essentially the next steps? The first one is the collaboration. I think we have said it yesterday a few times. If you remember, we said what is needed for good collaboration. In my view, it's communication, communication, and communication. We've heard also 3 times the political will, and we also heard about the partnerships. Let me thank again all the partners, so from Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, to really drive this way forward with the methodological guidance, tools, and thinking about it, but also huge and sincere thanks to Alfonso and ECLAC and his team to really be working on the manual to bring it closer to the Latin American countries in this particular case, to develop a welcome kit, which is being pilot tested in other regions as well. So essentially within the global project, all the pilot countries of the project are benefiting from all this collaboration that we have. There is an ultimate goal, of course, to create a so-called community of practice. In the upcoming Financing for Development forum in Sevilla, the community of practice will be launched. Essentially, all the countries of the South are invited to join in to see how to join this community of practice, to share experience, to learn from each other. It is really being based and built on the solidarity approach. We have heard it yesterday several times that there are more and more vocal calls to strengthen the support to member states by UNCTAD or the UN family in general. We are hearing these calls and we are addressing those either bilaterally or multilaterally. We are building partnerships to actually address all those questions. Today's session and yesterday's session was a tiny drop in this vast sea of the South-South cooperation, and we wanted to raise awareness a little bit of the concepts, of the methods, and the work that we have, but also the players. We remain available for any contacts, follow-up questions, and everything. As Amandine has said, the materials will be shared, and of course the contacts will be shared, and we will keep you abreast of all the new developments in terms of the e-learning module, data insights, any other tools and events as well. On this note, I would like to thank you. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to all the participants joining from all over the globe, morning, evening, during the day. Highly appreciated. Apologies for not having sufficient time to address all the questions that we have received in the chat, but we have received the questions and we will try and provide all the feedback in due course. I think I should stop here, and I think I also need to thank our interpreters for allowing us to be at least bilingual today. So at this stage, also a big thank you to the Brazilian Development Agency for providing the interpretation between English and Spanish. And on this note, let me close off and send over us to Amandine. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Boyan. I just wanted to add that I have copy-pasted a link to a form. So if you have the time and if you wish, you can let us know what you thought about the webinar, and that will be helpful for us. So I'm not going to repeat what Boyan said. I'll just say thank you to all of you, to the interpreters, and we are looking forward to continuing working with you. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. You have at least my email. I've bombarded everyone with a Zoom link and requests. So let's keep in touch, and thank you very much again.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you,
Bye.
Boyan, Amandine, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to see you all.
Have a good
Thank you.
day.
Bye.
It was very nice. I need to stop here.